Well, February the 27th, and thought I would go ahead and kind of update on a variety of things that are current in the news. One issue, of course, is the report that came out on the deceased Washington Post reporter Jamal Khashoggi, a critic of the Saudi Arabian regime. And we have now officially concluded in our intelligence report, probably highly redacted, that in fact this was that the king of Saudi Arabia was in fact responsible for it. And I think I don't know. I have some definite thoughts on this subject. But first of all, I want to mention, remember to subscribe to this and give me a like if you do like it, and of course the comments are appreciated. Always trying to get this channel kind of spun up a little bit. Okay, let's get back to the Khashoggi. I sort of am suspicious of the theory that this was a direct assassination plot, although there are some elements that would still lend one to believe that it was. And the reason I have that is, if you were the leader of Saudi Arabia, okay, and you have a political enemy you want to eliminate, and you know he's going to be in Turkey, so he's outside the United States, so you don't have to do it on U.S. territory, which would even be much more provocative. Okay, but would you really want to do it in your own embassy? Would that really make a whole lot of sense? I mean, if you have a 15-man hit team on scene, so to speak, wouldn't just gunning him down in the street, or poisoning him, or planting a bomb in his car, or some other normal assassination technique? I mean, certainly an attack in the street would seem to be good, along with a little bit of robbery, like a watch and a wallet or something. Might sort of be the kind of thing that could be passed off as street crime, unsolved, although suspicions would be aroused it was the Saudi intelligence service that did it. It would be kind of one of those things that would wouldn't be the same thing as actually bringing him into the consulate, killing him in the consulate, and then having his body dismembered and somehow the parts removed, never to be found again. I mean, that's, well, a bit on the macabre side, it also seems to me to be, something that definitely leads to where the blame is going to be posted. Add to the fact that the Turkish intelligence service apparently had the Saudi embassy bugged, and so they heard all the activities that occurred in there. I've sort of been of the mind that what might have really happened was that it was more of an abduction type of a scenario. And the intent was to abduct, so to speak, effect an arrest and remove him from Turkey and send him back to Saudi Arabia to face trial. And so that would be an entirely different kind of thing, probably with some claim that he left voluntarily, although it wasn't very voluntarily, and that somehow in the efforts to subdue him, he ended up getting killed. Probably realizing what his fate would be in Saudi Arabia, he probably fought gallantly and probably wasn't in great shape health-wise, and excessive force led to his untimely demise, and then they had to figure out how they were going to cover it up. That seems to be a more likely scenario, although it's not one that's often discussed in the media, which is one of my general critiques of the media, is the lack of intelligence that's generally brought to most topics. They take the most naive, simplistic thing, focus on it, and never kind of use a little bit of rationality to say, well, what's really likely to have been the case. But at any rate, the leader, the king there, is going to get blamed, and probably not much is going to be done about it because, well, it's a key ally in a sensitive region and the oil supply and everything. So, enough of that. Another thing that came up, which is sort of interesting, is the Paul Irving, the former sergeant at arms, I guess, of the House, has now admitted that it was Nancy Pelosi that originally expressed the issue about the optics of using the National Guard, and that was in a quote blender of things, which led to him deciding not to call for the National Guard early and leaving the defenses of the Capitol inadequate. And I point out, I think that's kind of interesting. That reminds me of the fact that nobody ever found a document where Hitler actually signed an order for the Holocaust. but somehow people got the idea that that's what he wanted. So I think the same thing's kind of true here, that Nancy Pelosi may not never given a direct order, but effectively she basically gave the order. So, and I don't know that if she was cunning enough to think that something like this might happen that could be used to their political advantage, or more likely she really was just concerned about the optics. However, apparently her concern about the optics has been reduced greatly now, given that we now have, 5,000 to 7,000 National Guard and a big defensive perimeter around the Capitol. So, at any rate, I thought that was an interesting tidbit of information. It's slowly trickling out. It didn't make the headline on the first day or even on my video I did previously on this, but it's out there now. So I thought I'd mention that to everybody, to update everybody on what we've learned since then. And I guess the other big thing that's kind of in the news right now is that the House has passed its $1.9 trillion COVID bill. Actually, Democrat slush fund bill is what it really is. I mean, a much smaller bill, something like the $600 billion proposed by the Republicans as a compromise, would have been more than enough to handle COVID relief issues at this point. But this has the advantage. There's a lot of money in it that won't be spent for years, which can probably be used to try to buy votes during election years and other purposes. So much money for schools that aren't even open that we're not sure what are we going to do, build new school buildings. I mean, who knows? Big raises for teachers, something. So anyhow, those are things that are kind of in the bill, and of course they had a bit of a setback when the House parliamentarian ruled that the $15 minimum wage didn't fit within a reconciliation bill, since it's really a change in statutory law, not a budget issue. So I think that's a good development, at least that the Byrd rule seems to be holding for the moment, and I guess there's at least 2 Democrat senators that are prepared to support it. And so we'll see what machination happens in the Senate on this. I wouldn't, when you're dealing with Democrats, never count it over till it's over. Let's put it that way. And we'll see how that plays out. Hopefully that ends up that way so that maybe the Republicans can get into a compromised bill. I think a compromise bill has been proposed, which would be $11 minimum wage and a mandatory E-Verify in the bill, which sort of is probably a showstopper. But on the other hand, I suspect that a mandatory E-Verify would probably be more benefit, because wages are coming up anyhow. The minimum wage is already at $15 in Walmart, and Costco went to $16. The key thing is that if the worker doesn't justify a given wage, then it's going to be hard for them to maintain the job, and the job goes away. And everybody, what ends up happening, I think, with increasing the minimum wage would be, in addition to more automation, to just eliminate workers, is that, and maybe more things being outsourced to foreign countries, you're also going to see the fact that the people that are left, that they will seek to hire and retain the most productive workers and make them do all the jobs for the people, the less productive workers that they lay off, who now don't have a job and are now completely unproductive and don't have, skills and so forth. Mainly, remember that these lower wage jobs are designed mainly for, high school kids and very young people entering the workforce. So really not the idea that somebody is going to be the breadwinner of a family at the minimum wage. So, this lack of sensitivity to the overall dynamics of an economy is just typical of Democrat policy. But at any rate, for the time being, the parliamentarian who is being a bit attacked by the Democrats, but for the moment she's still there, and I guess will remain for the moment. We'll see what her fate is also as time goes forward. And finally, I guess you might want to mention that this is the big week of CPAC, the big conservative political action committee meeting in Florida. And of course, everybody's waiting for the big event, which of course will be the speech from former President Donald Trump, who will speak tomorrow on Sunday. And it'll be interesting. Everybody's waiting to hear what he says and what his plans are and so forth. One could hope that he doesn't get on too much of a vindictive mood and has a more proactive mood, because there's no real good to be had of the Republicans fighting each other. I mean, yes, we have a few fringe people who, goes off the rails, and many of them will, I'm sure, face primaries. I'm sure that Liz Cheney is going to face one and probably won't get renominated, I'm suspecting. And the only thing I think could save her, I might have mentioned previously in a video, would be if there are so many people that pile on in a multi-person contest that she ends up getting a plurality because all the anti-Liz Cheney votes are diffused and leaves her with 30-some% in the middle or something and ends up pulling it out that way. But barring that, I think her tenure in the House is coming to an end. And but we'll see. Again, that's a little way. That's next year's issue. So, but we'll be really interested to see what President Trump has to say, and what he indicates about his future plans. I understand, though, that he's mainly planning on pursuing people that agree with his policies in the primaries and for elections in 2022 in the congressional and Senate seats. Well, I'll wrap this up now. I think we've kind of hit the high points, and we'll wait to see what develops next.